Has NASCAR lost its identity? I mean, let's think about it. They instituted an in-season tournament. Who does that? The NBA. They're doing road racing like crazy, adding more races to road racing every single season. And that's trying to keep up with IMSA and Formula. They're doing a race outside of the United States this year. The NFL has done that, right? They go to Europe. This one that NASCAR is doing is in Mexico City. But they're doing a lot of things that they're getting from other sports entities that are completely unoriginal. It's not them doing it. They're just not coming up with the ideas. They're doing it. And so their identity at this point is to morph it together with other people. So again, have they lost their identity? I think a little bit they have, unfortunately. Let's talk about the in-season tournament a little bit. It's kind of an interesting thing. So basically, this tournament is going to consist of 8 regular season races that'll be run in June and July. Almost all of the races in June and July. I think there's one race at the beginning of June that isn't included, but the following 8 there will be. And they all count towards regular season points and standings for the playoffs, just like they normally would. None of that has changed. But for the first 3 races, every driver is eligible, and then based on the results of those 3 races, they will qualify for bracketing. Okay? So with their best finish in any of the 3 races, ties will be broken by total race points in that time. And then there's 32 drivers that'll go on. So those first 3 races, okay, are Michigan, the race in Mexico City, which is Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, a road course, okay, and then Pocono. So that road course, these drivers have not been much at all. So a lot of these guys, like you would consider the top tier NASCAR drivers, may end up having to throw that race away and taking either Michigan or Pocono's best finished to put them into the seeding. I would assume that if you're not in the top 5 in the seeding or whatever, it probably doesn't matter. But if you are low, let's say you're the 30th driver or the 25th or whatever, you're probably going to be pit up against somebody who's in the top 5. And now you got to go race somebody who had a really good race earlier. But does that mean that it's a good driver? I mean, think about it. One of the drivers that is like a road course specialist could win in Mexico City and be in the top 5, but not necessarily be a great driver, in the following 5. So that one being in there is going to kind of shake it up a little bit, so it's going to be kind of interesting, to see what comes of that. So as we go into the 5 race series or bracketry type races where it's a head-to-head kind of deal, think of it like NHRA drag racing. They all go out there, they're seeded 1 through like 16, and it's just elimination races, right? So whoever you're pitted against, you have to finish better than them in that race. And then you move on to the next race, finish better than whoever you're pitted against. For 5 races, they crown the champion at Atlanta Motorsport Speedway. That's a great one too, because you got to figure, or I'm sorry, Atlanta Motor Speedway is where it starts. It finishes at the Brickyard. So the first week is going to be Atlanta, and of course, we know that's a short super speedway, right? Restrictor plate, so it's going to be drafting, and so whoever you're first bracketed against, it's a complete crapshoot whether or not you're going to be able to beat them or not. You could be beating them all day long and then got caught up in the big wreck and they beat you and you're out. And that's kind of Okay, whatever. So, you look at the top three races here, the seeding races, and those are kind of weird. And then you look at the first race, Atlanta. Then they go to the Chicago street race, and then they go to Sonoma. So now we're in two different street races, road courses, where somebody who's not necessarily going to be able to compete for a championship because they're a road specialist is going to have a chance to compete for this. And I can only imagine that that's why that NASCAR did this, because you don't want somebody to win the in-season tournament and win the championship, because then it's all just dominated, and then they're going to talk about how this team cheats and whatever, right? The last two races are Dover and Indianapolis. Those are somewhat normal tracks. I mean, NASCAR's been going to the Brickyard for a long time now, so while it is different, all the regular drivers know how to drive there. There's not a problem. And for that matter, they've been going to Sonoma for a long time too. So, the drivers know that. They may not be the best at it, but I really feel that this whole in-season tournament is set up so that somebody who's not necessarily, the best, I don't want to talk down about anybody, but, they're not going to win a championship, okay? They're more likely to win this, And so what do we think about it? I mean, an in-season tournament. Well, I know the drivers like it, just like in the NBA in-season tournament. You know what I mean? It was the same games. These are kind of the same races. It's the same points. Doesn't really matter other than, there's $1 million paycheck at the end of the tunnel. Well, that can make people drive a little differently. We all see what happens in the all-star races sometimes. So you can see how it could make these races a little more intense. And maybe that's going to make it more exciting, I guess. Something more for the news to track, that's for sure. But from a driver's standpoint, hey, if you're going to give me $1 million to go out there and see what I can do, I'm in, right? I got to run these races anyway, so why wouldn't I? From a spectator standpoint, it gives you a little bit something more to think about. Is it going to work out? Did it work out in the NBA? I don't know, mildly. There was a little buzz around it, We'll see. I'm not sure I'm completely sold on it, but we'll see how it plays out. Somebody's going to win $1 million. Anyway, there's a rule update in NASCAR as well this year that I'm not sure I'm a fan of. And that is that the damaged vehicle policy has now been amended to where a driver can go back into the garage, get repairs done, and come back out on the track. Now, I don't know about you. I've been watching NASCAR for a long time. When they had this in the rules before, it was a problem. And that's why they took it out. And I don't know if current leadership in NASCAR remembers this, but it was a problem because there's certain tracks where it's hard to get out of the way. And if you are off speed and your car's damaged and can't really control it the best, it's a problem for them to be out there. Especially, it takes super speedways. You got a guy out there limping around because, there was a guy that ended up getting 3, 4, 5 more laps than him on the big crash. He wants to go out there and he wants to try to get those lap backs, get that one position, get that point, because every point matters in the playoffs. And he's out there, now we're 3 wide at Daytona, and this guy's off speed. Everybody's trying to go around him. The car's mid-pack, can't even see that there's a 3 wide situation. Hopefully their spotter's telling them about it. And it can just cause mayhem. And that's why they took it out of the sport. And now they're putting it back. And I guess it's because some of the smaller teams would probably be complaining that, hey, those points matter. That extra, a couple $1,000s on the check for that position from the prize purse. That matters to us because we can't, we only got so many dollars here. I understand the argument, but at the same time, it's about the product you put out for the spectators. And the spectators don't want to see their driver crashed because some guy who's now irrelevant in this race was allowed back out there. And that's why they took it out in the first place. And I think it's a mistake to bring it back. I don't know. What do you think? So we had Stuart Haas left NASCAR, right? Leaving 4 charters that were open. That's kind of Stuart Haas has been around for a long time. Stuart has obviously been a driver for a long time. That team hadn't been around for a long time. But the names made it kind of like a staple in NASCAR. And when they exited, that was kind of a blow to the brand, in my opinion. Even though Stuart Haas was not super competitive the last couple seasons, honestly, since Harvick left. Harvick was kind of the glue that kept it together. He was competitive. He shared information with the other teams, and the other teams were better. And when he left, it went downhill. Fight me, that's what happened. So basically, those 4 charters were open for other people, but they're so expensive. Junior Motorsports has been trying to get into NASCAR Cup Series for a long time. He says himself that he should have bought them 10, 15 years ago, bought charters, that is, so that he could be in that series. But now they've gotten so expensive that it's impossible. Well, like I said last week, he's going to be at the Daytona 500, but that's a one-time event. Hopefully we'll see more of that from Junior Motorsports, but he refuses to buy charters. What this did do, though, is it opened up an opportunity for Red Bull Racing to get back in the sport. And I don't know if you remember them, but they were around 2007 to 2011. And, gosh, I can't remember the main driver that they had. This redhead kid, I can't remember his name for whatever reason. I should do more homework and be prepared when I do these. But anyways, they were in, so 4 years or so, they were with Toyota when Toyota kind of entered the sport, and Red Bull was a great brand for them to partner with. Well, now Red Bull is getting back in with 2 vehicles, but they're partnering with Trackhouse. If you're not familiar with Trackhouse, they are good. Okay, they're a 2-car team that has done very well. Don't have the best drivers, I mean, you could say Ross Chastain's good, but he's a little wild. But they got good equipment. And so Red Bull Racing is going to partner with Trackhouse, and essentially Trackhouse is going to have the charters, have the team. They're going to run them on a limited schedule. And if you think about it, Red Bull Racing already has 2 drivers in SVG and Connor Zilic. Those are 2 people already sponsored by Red Bull Racing that they're going to put their cars on, and they're going to use those drivers under Trackhouse, right? So SVG is going to drive the 88. Somebody tell me how they got the 88. I don't know. Had to have got it from Hendrick. He was the last one to have it with Dale Earnhardt Jr. No reason to retire numbers in NASCAR. They don't really do that. But I don't know. That's going to be weird to see Red Bull Racing 88. Last time we saw it was Dale Jr. Last time before that was, I don't know. Let's see. Dale Jarrett, I think, probably, right? 88. So it was a long time before that. So you don't see that number a whole lot, but that's what he's going to run. And then Zilic is going to be in the 87. Now, Connor Zilic, if you don't know, run truck, some Xfinity. He's 18 years old. So there's only so much he's going to be able to run, and I think there's only so much the other drivers want him to run. Not that he's not a good driver, don't get me wrong. He's good. He's an up-and-coming, talented driver. But at 18 years old, I don't know that I would want to be sitting in a seat next to him at Talladega. You know what I mean? Seems dangerous. But they're going to limit him to actually only 1 race at Circuit of the Americas, and that's on March 2nd. I wouldn't be surprised if he does a good job if they add, Chicago Street, they add Sonoma, Mexico City. They picked the first road race for a reason, and I think that's because they want to do that. Now, in road races, he can go there. I don't think he's able to do super speedways yet. So they may try him out on a couple of road courses and see how he does, and I think he's going to do fine. I will tell you this, though. That Cup car is completely different than anything he's ever driven, and he's definitely going to have to figure that out. You know what I mean? But a road course is I don't know if that's the place to do it. It could be good for him, and he could have a very hard time controlling that vehicle. So we'll just have to see what happens. SVG is going to run 5 races, however. He's going to get a little bit more of a chance here. The races he's going to run is Las Vegas, Sonoma, Iowa, Daytona, and Kansas. I find it very interesting that they're putting him at a whole bunch of tracks, and only one of them is a road course. I would be willing to bet that he's driven enough in Cup that at Sonoma he's going to win. Barring something happening, obviously, but he's going to be a big favorite. I'm just not sure why he's not driving a Chicago street course where he absolutely dominated not too long ago, and why he's not driving at Mexico City, the Glen. I don't get it. That's his bread and butter. You know, that's when you're running a limited schedule. Don't you want to put him somewhere where they, can win, where they're going to have a great chance? Because you only got, you're paying a lot of money to put that car on the track. Don't you want to make sure you finish the best you can? Because I sure would. Kind of interesting, but I wonder, are they doing this to kind of get him a little bit more experience before making a decision on a full-time ride? Because I think he could do it. I just wonder if they don't want to put up all that money just yet. Because it's a lot. If you're doing 5 races, you probably only need a couple of cars. You're going to do the whole season, you're going to need at least 10 cars. And that's if you don't crash any of them. So, and that's just the cars themselves. That's not, the employees, the drive, you name it. Everything else that goes into being at the track around the country every year. Or every weekend, sorry. So maybe they're kind of trying to see how he's going to do in these few races and see, because he does have different tracks. Sonoma is obviously a road. Las Vegas is 1.5 miles. Iowa is 0.87. Kansas is 1.5 miles, and Daytona is a super speedway. So they're giving him really a variety, of all the different tracks, and trying to see. I think they're trying to see how he's going to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does pretty well in 2026. He's going to be a full-time Cup driver with Trackhouse / Red Bull Racing. I don't know. Let's move on to IMSA. IMSA is kicking off right now. We just had qualifying for the Daytona 24 hour. That was very interesting. Dries Van Thor, he takes the pole for the GTPs in his BMW. Set a good time, had at least a half a second over any other driver. So he did very well. There's a couple drivers that had issues. I even learned something in that session, that they had a car that went off the track. I think it was an LMP2, and he couldn't get it going. He was stuck in the grass, and they had to throw a red flag. And I learned that when they throw a red flag, that driver loses their top 2 lap times. So essentially, they're putting them to the end of the field, because now they're costing everybody else time to actually get their best time. So he got a big penalty. But Dries had a great run, great lap in that BMW. And so he's going to get to start out front for the 24-hour, which, listen, it's a long race. But, wouldn't you want to be in the fastest class at the front of the field and just have clean track in front of you for at least the first, let's say, hour before you start? Okay, now we're taking on GT3s and GTD Pro, and you just get to settle in as a driver. So I think that's going to be a great advantage for him. LMP2, Daniel Goldberg barely beat out Ben Keating for the pole there. So those two will start up front in the kind of the middle class. They're not as fast as GTPs, but faster than GTDs, and so they're going to be up front there, and we'll see what they're doing. They'll have a gap in front of them as well. They will probably have even more of a gap because the GTPs will take off, and it'll take them even longer to get to the GTDs. So they will have obviously an advantage among the LMP2s, and the GTDs are by far the most amount of cars that are in the race. But Mustang goes 1-2 with Rocky, who is also Mike Rockenfeller, and he gets the pole, and then Frederick Vervich gets the second place, both Fords. Now, if you remember, last week I mentioned that it was going to be interesting to see Ford's development, and I think we got an answer right off the bat. They came out and qualified 1-2, which they've never done. And now they're going to start out front their class and get that open daylight, not have to deal with the carnage of the first couple laps. I think they're going to be set up for a really good 24-hour, but it is a long race. And starting out front, having that clean air and that open track in front of you is great. But realistically, after an hour and a half, it no longer matters. You're going to be in traffic. You're going to be dealing with people. The GTD class is such that, you're going to pass the GT3 non-pros, they're going to be a little bit slower, and you're going to make passes on them. But mostly you're just getting ran through by GTD or GTP and LMP2s, and so they're gonna have a long race, and they got to be patient and not make mistakes and deal with those driver changes efficiently. And there's a lot that goes into these races. It's not just set a fast lap time. It is patience. It is endurance, and but all of these drivers are set up in great positions at the front of their classes and have a great opportunity for a clean race. And it's going to be amazing and fun. I'm going to watch as much of it as I can. I don't know if I can stay up the whole time, but it is going to be a great event to watch this weekend. Southern Racing Network had their Week 3 race at Iowa. That was an interesting race. 0.87 mile night race. Cold temperatures, 66 degree, 15% humidity, but the track is pretty flat, and it still was looking very loose out there. But that's also because it's very easy to overdrive. When you got low banking and you want to pedal off, a lot of times that truck wants to break loose. Those trucks don't have near as much grip as the lower to the ground cars do. And so it was a battle out there for the drivers all night. You would think, being that it's a night race, it's cold out, it'd have more grip, but it just didn't. And all of the drivers did a great job. It was what I would call a pretty clean race. There was 2 to 3 really good green flag stints mixed in with a couple of cautions where, hey, when the tires run out, it's hard to handle, and sometimes it can get away from you before you even know it. And I was practicing for it, and there was a couple times it got away from me, and I didn't even feel like I was trying hard. It just kind of whoop, there it goes. And it's usually out of 4 because it's a little less banking, and the track arcs around, and you kind of feel like, okay, I can get on it, but not yet. So that was challenge for everybody in the race. Unfortunately, towards the end, the aggression picks up. It's go time, and there was a couple of cautions towards the end, green-white checkers, and Rick Baldwin and Steven Shue had their race kind of ruined. They're late. They were running 2-3 and had a good run going and got collected in an accident. And I really believe that they would have finished second, third at least. If they could have gotten there and not been victims of an accident. But, that's racing. It happens. I know both of those guys were battling, and I know they had a lot of fun for, those laps leading up to it. Both those guys are really good, clean drivers, and they'll race you hard, and they'll scrape a little paint, but both of those guys will not wreck you. And so if you were watching the broadcast, it was a really exciting battle to see those two guys going at it. But to give you the rundown of our finishes, we had Chris Phillips takes the win. Bobby Hall, not Ricky Bobby, but Bobby Hall takes second. Gordon Spain in third. Chris Barker in fourth. Yours truly, Matthew Gall in fifth. Ronnie Shirk takes up sixth. John Schuenbachler, he is going to be your seventh place finisher. Eighth goes to Alex Healy. Michael Cole ends up ninth, and Thomas Hall ends up 10th. That rounds out your top 10. I was able to get an interview earlier with Chris Phillips, so let's take a look at that now. All right, we have our Week 3 Iowa winner, Chris Phillips. How you doing, bud?
Not too bad, Matt.
Good. Well, you had a dominating race. I mean, you were out front quite a bit there at Iowa. Tell us a little bit about track conditions, your kind of strategy. What were you thinking, and how were you having to drive out there?
Track, it's Iowa. It's slick. Turn 4 will bite you real quick. You just got to be easy on that throttle, and tracks like this just suit me. I love slick tracks. I usually do fairly well at them, and I was really good at. It was a good run.
Yeah. Now, we knew going into the race that short tracks, especially flat short tracks, not like Bristol where it's super banked, right? Like these kind of tracks can be super loose off of 2 and 4. And so it was set up as a night race, and it was set up at 66 degrees, but it was still loose out there. It was still slick, huh?
Yeah, it was super slick.
Yeah. I guess we just can't get the slick out of that track. But I mean, it does make the cream rise to the top, so to speak, right? So we have drivers that, you really had to hold on to your car, you had to save your tires, the strategy really came into play. And obviously you showed that you were one of the best at that in this. Tell us about your tire saving. Were you backing off the first 10, 15 laps, or what was your kind of strategy going into that with the tires?
Well, to save tires here, it's hard because you're usually beside somebody, and it's usually a 1-lane track. Well, I say that, but you can run the high line. My preferred is the bottom because off throttle, I'm not burning those tires. I don't feel like, but I have to arc it real far in the corner. So my first few laps, it's you got to get what you get in front of everybody, and then run that preferred line, and it's just cruise control from there.
Yeah. And I feel like it was loose, but there was a lot of over driving. Even not the guys that were wrecking, but what I mean is like if you overdrive just a little bit, get a little sideways, get a little loose, you're scrubbing your tires and putting heat in them, and that's going to make them angry later.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thing is, you got to be patient. If you get in there hot, you try to overcorrect, and you just make it worse. Best thing to do is just chill.
Nice and easy.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I like these tracks, because like we were at Daytona, obviously it's a super speedway. Everybody likes those. It's fun, but
Sure.
anybody can win those. Las Vegas, it's kind of a drafting-ish track too. And then you come here, and you got to lift off that throttle, and like you said, you see the people that can drive these things. Really, they come up here at the top. I mean, the Grady. I hate what happened to him at the first of that.
Yeah.
I gave him plenty of room, and we got into each other, and I hate it.
Yeah, obviously
Yeah.
I was going to lead into that next, because that was the big event of the evening, let's call it. Obviously Grady gets in a little hot. He kind of washes out into the 00 and the 19, being Stephen Shu and Rick Baldwin. And those are two good competitors that were very, very fast. Not that Grady wasn't. Obviously, he was sitting there in fourth place. You know what I mean? So he was competitive as well, but just kind of little too much going into 3 there. You think those guys had anything for you, or you were pretty much able to check out on them?
Uh, there was one run there for a little bit. Rick had me. I mean, he was coming. Hats off to him. I mean, he was really on me, and he told me at the beginning. You can look back in the Discord. He had his eye on this track, and I see why now. He's
Yes.
pretty good here. But once I get, like I said, I get out there and get that preferred line, and I needed a few laps on these tires. I was way better on the older tires than I could. That's when I really made my distance. That long green flag run, I was pulling on the field, and I needed that green flag, and I just kept being caution and caution, and yeah, that
Yeah.
I hate it for especially Steven and Rick too. I mean, Grady fought all the way back up there. I had 23 green flag laps with him. We were side by side a lot.
Yep.
He was fast.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it
it's
was,
just, I
I
mean,
hate
that
the problem.
unfortunately happens in racing. It's just you can have a great race, and then you have that, that split second mistake, and boom, it's over,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep.
unfortunately that's what happened to him, and it cost a couple other guys. And I know that Baldwin, especially, he kind of liked starting on that outside with you there. He felt really comfortable, really strong up there, and then you flipped on him on a restart and took the top with your teammate behind you. He was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"Dang, well, there goes
He knew it
that."
was coming. He knew it
Yeah,
was coming.
absolutely, he knew it. I told him because I'm sitting 6, 7 cars back or whatever I was,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Hey, these guys are gonna line up. I know he's taking outside." So,
Yeah, the one before that, I didn't even realize that Steven snuck up there on me, man. He was just like cruising, wasn't saying anything on the radio or Discord,
oh, he didn't want you to start driving hard.
and then he's like, "Oh, you're not gonna start on the top or something like that." I was like, "Oh, dude, I didn't even know.
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah,
he was up there." And so I had to
yeah.
pay attention from then.
Yeah, he was pretty
Yeah,
strong too. That was two
he
strong
was
cars that
coming.
had an unfortunate thing there, but it's a long season, and I know both of those guys are talented drivers, and they'll still be in it here. But
For
tough break for
sure.
them, and so tell me, looking forward on the schedule. The next few weeks we got Nashville Super Speedway, we got Indianapolis, Dover, Kansas, Texas. Anything in there that kind of stands out that, okay, this is a track I'm going to win at, or any of them that you don't like?
Dover's not a fan of
Yeah.
that, but the rest of them I like. I mean, Nashville's kind of like this, but I haven't logged as many laps there, so I'm not as confident. But Indy, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Kansas and then Texas, yeah, that's all good. I can't
Yeah,
wait for that.
Nashville Super
I
Speedway and
like the
Texas are kind of similar, right? There's the
yeah,
mile and a half, and those are pretty similar. Indianapolis is kind of obviously its own beast, and that's you sound like you're kind of like me, where it's fun because it's different.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because I like Pocono too, and those two are
yeah.
I like. I mean,
Pocono's coming
I
up a
like
little
this
bit
schedule.
later. We'll be
Yep.
doing that one. Let's see, March 26th. Pocono will be in. So those ones right there, they really do separate the guys that have a little bit more experience from the guys that don't. Because the guys that don't have a lot of experience, they don't spend time at Indianapolis. They don't spend time at Pocono, and those are separators. You know what I mean? So anytime you're kind of more experienced, those are ones I would assume you look at.
Yep, they're pretty fun, flat ones. Like them.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Well, I'll give you the floor here. You could tell us about your team, tell us about your sponsors, whatever you want. The floor is yours.
Well, I'd like to thank you for putting on this league, man. Doing a good job. We appreciate it. Uh, my teammates, Foothills Motorsports, couldn't do it without you boys. Uh, James Wagner Welding, Jamie, you do a good job for us, helping us out. We appreciate everything you've done for us. Uh, no, that's about it, man.
Cool. Appreciate it. Well, I would like to second that, James Wagner. Just real quick. So obviously we've been racing together for a while in other leagues.
Right.
And, James Wagner, sponsored that league and did a lot for it. And without that league, a lot of us wouldn't be the drivers that we are, especially myself. I was so green coming into that
Right.
league, man. And I learned so much in that league. And it was because of Jamie's sponsorship and being able to have that broadcast, to watch it back, to see what I was doing, to see what was going on, what did I miss, and then just the seat time and being in the league. And so owe him a lot. Unfortunately, we're not able to work together right now, but maybe one day that'll change. And
Yeah. Hopefully
yeah,
so, man.
so good
He
deal,
does a good
man.
job
Well,
for us, man.
yeah.
Can't appreciate him enough, and get your mag real estate in there. Appreciate that. Dude. I'm gonna hit up this Natural Life. I like that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to, dude. I am gonna check that out for sure.
Nice. Very good. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck in the next few weeks and with the rest of the season. Maybe we'll be seeing you back here shortly.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Good luck, man.
All right, so that was Chris Phillips after his win at Iowa. Let's take a look at the point standings. But before I do that, let me just explain. So when in iRacing, and you're doing points based off of iRacing in the NASCAR style, what we do a lot of times in these leagues is we give people what are called drops. And so in this league, there's 20 races and they have 2 drops. And a drop basically means that every driver has their 2 worst finishes eliminated from the scores. Okay, and what that provides is, if a driver can't be there every week, they can take a week off, and it's not gonna hurt him because everybody's gonna have 2 drops. Or if they just come every week and they have a bad finish, Talladega, Daytona, they get wiped out, it doesn't matter. That's a drop. Okay, so now that we're in week 3, you're going to start seeing that only 2 weeks are calculated. And then in week 4, it'll still only be 2 weeks calculated. It'll just be your best 2 races because there's 2 drops. Week 5, then there'll be 3, and then it'll start to pick up, and those 2 drops won't matter as much, and we'll start to see points really kind of start to take shape and see where everybody is. But as of right now, okay, with the best 2 finishes, Alex Healy is our leader. Chris Phillips is second. Bobby Hall is third. Chris Barker in fourth. Bobby Grady is tied for fourth. And then we have tied for sixth place is going to be Gordon Spain, Rick Baldwin, Matt Grenier, and okay, yeah. So those are the 3 that are in sixth place, and then tied for ninth are Daniel Worthington, Isaac Singleton, and bringing out 10th is going to be myself, Matthew Gall. So that's what we have right now. Again, next week it may change a little, but there's still those drops, so it might not be that different. But that's where we're at with the series right now. So next week, looking forward, we are going to Nashville Super Speedway. This is one of my favorites, and I couldn't exactly tell you why, but it just something to do with that 1.5 miles, the amount of banking. It just really suits my driving style. I think it's going to suit a lot of guys' driving styles, though. It's just one of those tracks that's pretty driver friendly. It's hard to overdrive it. You can be aggressive and still not beat up the tires. So I feel like this is going to be a really fun race to watch. We are going to be at, like I said, Nashville Super Speedway. We're going to be on Extreme Sim TV, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. You guys can check us out. It's on YouTube at Extreme Sim TV. And we'd love to have you guys check it out. Let's see. Next week, we're going to debrief the 24-hour at Daytona. I cannot wait for that. It's going to be great. I'm hoping to have a guest star on, but I'm not going to say who it is because I don't know if he's going to be here for sure. But another avid IMSA road racing fan. I do a lot of endurance racing with him. So hopefully he's going to be able to make it to the show and kind of debrief that with us, and that'll be a lot of fun. And then, of course, we'll go through the SRN race for that week, any new NASCAR news. Nothing really new in eNASCAR. this week, so we didn't really go over that, but maybe there'll be something for next week, and we'll see. But that is it for today. We will see you guys next week.